And we're back. Mr. Jacobs, morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks a lot for joining us this morning. We've been a long time in the making to try to get this conversation to happen.
Indeed we have.
Yes, but we're quite glad to have you this morning as we're talking about football in St. Kitts and Nevis. And well, just so you know, I don't know if you listen to the show, but we mainly focus on sport development in St. Kitts and Nevis. And about this time, it's always good that we can have an opportunity to talk about football. We speak a lot about the other sports, and the times we talk about football, but just on the Nevis scene. But now it's time for us to talk about football from the national level. And there's been, over the past few months, since November, we can say there's been some very good news in the scene of football in St. Kitts and Nevis. We'll start first with achieving that milestone of 106.
Yes, that is indeed very positive for the development of football in St. Kitts and Nevis. As we know, our goal is to have the ranking go below 100 because that affords our aspiring footballers the opportunity to explore professional opportunities in Europe because they have set the standard over there to below 100, and in some countries the ranking has to be below 75. So we believe that we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, so 106 then was the lowest that St. Kitts Nevis has ever been.
Yes. The previous low mark for us, best ranking for us was 108. So that is quite significant in the 75-year history of the Football Association.
And what exactly did St. Kitts Nevis do to get there? How did we actually achieve that high ranking?
The FIFA ranking takes a number of things into consideration. World Cup qualifying matches carry the most weight, and as you know, the 2014 World Cup campaign, although we did not advance, we gave a good showing of ourselves. We played in a very tough group, one of the toughest groups within the region that had Puerto Rico and Canada. And we were able to draw with Canada at home. We also came up with draws against Puerto Rico. So those good showing gave us some points. The other aspect that it looks at in terms of the ranking is the number of your engagement, the country's engagement in international friendlies. And over the years, we've played a number of international friendly matches and have done very well. As a matter of fact, last year we played Antigua, which is a team that is ranked much lower. In our case, we say, well, it's high, but it's actually, the better it is, the lower you be ranked, the better it is. So they were ranked at a better ranking than us, but we were able to defeat them in an international friendly here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So when we have done very well in other international games, that will help to move the ranking along.
Okay, so then you spoke earlier about the ranking being below 100 and also that magic number of 75. Make the distinction for us then between being below 100 and also getting to 75 or below.
It will take quite a doing. I believe, at least for the immediate future, the goal is to get the ranking below 100, and we believe we can achieve that through our involvement in international friendlies. The way the ranking works, if you stay dormant, then you will slide backwards. So we have to stay active in the international arena. In terms of going below 75, for any country, the best bet if you want to go below 75 would be in a World Cup qualifying year, because that is when most of the teams are moving. That is when all the teams within the FIFA family engage in World Cup qualifying tournaments. And so if we are able to, the next target date will then be for us 2018, because 2014 we have been out of 2014. So our next target date is 2018, and so when the 2018 qualification starts, then St. Kitts and Nevis have to aim to get at least past the first and second round, and once we're able to do that, we can see significant improvement in our ranking.
So what's the significance and what's in it for St. Kitts and Nevis and for the football players in St. Kitts and Nevis to make sure that our national team is below 100 or even below 75?
Well, I mean, it definitely gives us a global profile in terms of football. We are already receiving some recognition. Last year alone, within the last 2 years, I would say, or the last 1 year and 6 months, we have seen 2 articles on St. Kitts and Nevis football on the FIFA website. So that shows that we're beginning to create the awareness.
Okay.
So in terms, we will create that awareness. We'll be looked upon as one of the strong contenders within the Caribbean region. We see Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago has created that profile for themselves, and so it not only helps football, but that awareness also helps the country because you lift the profile of the country in the international community that have many implications, spin-off implications for investment into the country, spin-off implications for tourism into the country. This is things that Jamaica has done very successfully, using its professional athletes, creating that awareness on the global stage.
Okay, so then my next question is this, and there are opportunities for individual football players in St. Kitts and Nevis if we get below, say, 75.
Yes, I mean, our players will be more exposed. The more matches we play in the international arena, we will be more exposed. And so opportunities for them to be spotted by coaches, for them to be offered professional contracts and stuff like that. Everything goes up once we begin to make inroads into the wider region, which is the CONCACAF region.
Yes, and it also, I assume, helps with their visa requirements or work permit requirements to play in other
because
countries.
There's a work permit requirement in the European market. It's in UK in particular, in order to play football. A lot of people are not aware of that, but you can't just go to England and play club football. You have to obtain what they call a work permit.
Right. Now, if we're able to achieve such a ranking as a nation, do we have the talent available to make such a splash internationally with our players?
Definitely we do. It's going to take a combination of locally based, talented, locally based players with a strong combination of international professional players. The reason being is that we have the talent locally. What we lack is the level of professionalism to take us to that next level. We have recognized when we have engaged a number of our overseas-based players, they bring a level of professionalism to the team, and that helped to raise the standard. And that is nothing new. When we look at Jamaica, who is advancing significantly. Jamaica played in the Caribbean Cup. They recently completed CFA Championship in Antigua and Barbuda with predominantly local homegrown players, as we will call them. They were beaten badly. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if they won a game, but they were beaten badly in the CFA finals in Antigua. Yeah. And so that taught them a lesson. Now the Jamaica team has a significant contingent of what we call the overseas-based professional players.
Okay, so you talk about that level of professionalism. Exactly what is it? And if you could simply pinpoint the difference between, say, a player who is maybe a professional or overseas-based player playing in a different league rather than the local league, what's the obvious difference between them and our local players?
Well, the big difference is there's not a wide gap in terms of talent, because we have a lot of talent here. There's not a wide gap in terms of talent, but they bring, in addition to the talent that they'll bring a level of professionalism, a level of attending every practice session, being there on time, the professional conduct in and out of the locker room. Those things are very important in terms of building team chemistry. And those are some of the things that we lack on the international, on the local scene. We've had experiences where we've brought in players from England, and they'll arrive at the RLB International Airport, and after an 8-hour flight, 8.5, 9-hour flight, the first thing they ask is, where's the training ground? Yeah. That shows you the mentality of a professional player. And we have a sheer worth of challenges in terms of getting our local players even to come out to practice on a daily basis. And so that is the level of professionalism that we need to have in terms of if we're going to build a national team that can go the depths of at least the depths of the CONCACAF championships.
But why do our local players lack that?
Because they have been playing in an amateur environment all their lives, and it's no fault of theirs, but it comes with the environment that they've been playing in. If a player plays in an amateur environment, then they have an amateur outlook and they have an amateur approach to the game, and that is what is lacking. When we've sought to send players overseas on trials, all the coaches have said to us that you have to send the players that are youngest. You have to send the players that are between the ages of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They've said to us, do not send anyone that is past 25, 27, 28, 30 years old on a professional trial, right, that have played their entire life in an amateur environment. And because there's a difference between playing in an amateur environment and a professional environment. And so you want to get the players into that, even into a professional environment or a college environment, which kinds of elevate their standard.
Well, what is the SKNFA doing then to try to create a similar environment locally for those athletes who we have who wouldn't have had the opportunity to go overseas to play in a professional league or to even play college football?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's very difficult because the mindset, if the players have only played in an amateur environment all their life, then they wouldn't have had that experience, and it's just not so easy to professionalize an environment when players, it's no fault of their own, but football for them is something that they love, something that they enjoy doing, and they do it on a daily basis. But they also have other things in and outside of their football activity. They have families, they have to work, and so the pressures of life outside of football, and then those things have to be taken into consideration.
Okay, now as I mentioned at the top, we're really interested in the development of sports, and we're always keeping an eye on that and trying to see how we can agitate to try to help with the development of any sport in St. Kitts and Nevis. When we consider athletes, and I call them athletes because they are, but footballers like Keith Kayamba Gums and Atiba Harris, and consider their status locally, do you feel from, and I'm talking to you as, of course, as an executive of the St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association, do you feel that their status is important, their local status among young footballers is important for the development of the sport in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Almost definitely, they have a contribution to make. They're viewed as icon, and they when they're here, they bring a level of professionalism which we keep speaking about. Keith Kayamba Gums is well advanced in his playing career. Now, as a matter of fact, I think he's player coach of his team in Indonesia. But when we brought him back a couple of years ago to play the Caribbean Cup, according to the commentators, I mean, he was one of the most vibrant players on the field, and they couldn't understand that at his age he was able to serve as the team leader, serve as the person that was rallying the team, and he was the person that was running back and forth, and running back in defense, and running back and running on offense. But that is that level of professionalism that he have learned from being in the professional environment for so many years, and it's similar with Atiba Harris. When they return to the national team, they bring that level of professionalism. So they have a role to play in terms of sharing that knowledge, imparting what they have learned over the years, playing in the professional environment to our young players.
Yeah, but Kayamba left St. Kitts and Nevis at a more advanced stage than, say, 21, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So in terms of the standard that other teams have, saying that if you're sending somebody, send them young, I guess Keith is somebody who has gone outside of that then.
He's an exception. He's an exception to the rule, and that is because for all the persons who know Keith Kayambagam, he's an extremely hard worker. He works maybe twice, five times as hard as the other players, and he had a determination to succeed, and so the perseverance paid off.
Okay, so he is player coach at the moment.
Yes.
And I know that you probably can't say this with any certainty, but after he's done, if he's so inclined, is there a more specific and maybe official role for him that could be available in the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association?
Most definitely. We have been in constant contact with Keith Kayambagams. As I said, right now he is a player coach, so he's employed. He's very comfortable. We have indicated, of course, that we would like to have him back here because we believe he have a role to play. He have a contribution to make. The years of experience that he have had as a professional player, we believe holds well for our young players. We would like to see Keith Kayambagams come back to St. Kitts and serve in the capacity as a coach, help to develop our team. And definitely he has a role to play. Someone that a lot of the young players will look up to.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's one team that I for certain have been following in the Caribbean, and maybe we can narrow it down and say the Leeward Islands, Antigua. Antigua seems to have been making some quite interesting moves in terms of their ranking and just their overall performances of late. What do you say is the major factor in that, from what you can see with the Antigua team?
Antigua has done an exceptionally wonderful job, and I must say special congratulations to my good friend Gordon Derrick in Antigua, who is also the president of the CFU and General Secretary in Antigua. They have done an exceptionally wonderful job with their team. They have done what I think most of the Caribbean islands are looking at doing. They have used a combination of overseas-based professional players blended with local-based players. They have been able to, develop a good combination and a good bunch of young and then experienced players, and they have been able to advance well within the Caribbean qualifying zone, and so that is very important. I mean, your first benchmark is to advance within the Caribbean zone, and then see if we can advance out of the CONCACAF zone, as Jamaica is now endeavoring to do.
Yeah. And Antigua is quite impressive, as I've said, but all the things that I can recall about Antigua is that there's a team called the Antigua Barracudas, and I know I've had an interview in the past with I can't remember the name of the guy, but I think he's the owner or president or something of the team, the Antigua Barracudas, and I know that part of their objective was to make sure that they're bringing professional opportunities to young players in Antigua so that they can make this exact move. So for me, looking at the Antigua national team, I can see a sense of there was something deliberate about the advancement.
Yes, they're definitely having a professional team based from Antigua and Barbuda. The Antigua Barracudas has definitely helped. It has provided that environment where a lot of their young players can play day in, day out on a professional level. So football is their daily life, and that has helped to raise the standard. That is a model that we in St. Kitts and Nevis is very interested in exploring. Of course, the challenges are always going to be the financing, because as you know, the Barracuda themselves have their own challenges in terms of the financing. The travel is very expensive, and the hotel accommodation. And we are playing from what I understand, they'll now be based playing their games out of the U.S. instead of back and forth between Antigua and the U.S. to reduce the cost. But that is significant. So that has been a challenge for them in terms of they're located in the Caribbean, the Northeast Caribbean, but most of the games are played in North America. So you have to take that cost into consideration. And then, especially in the smaller Caribbeans, we don't have the populations that can fill a stadium with 60,000 people that will help to offset some of these costs. And so the challenge of the economy of scale has to be taken into consideration.
So then, if you had a wish list for St. Kitts Nevis football and for aspiring to actually have a professional team, what would it be?
Well, of course, we would like to have that professional team. We have the talent, and the one thing that we would like an investor with a very, very, very deep pocket, a consortium of professionals who understand what it takes to put a professional team together and have a similar setup in St. Kitts and Nevis. But it will need an investor, a group of investors with the financing to do that.
Well, not just the financing, but probably with a certain understanding that
the technical know-how, yes, the technical know-how.
Right, and also maybe somewhat of a generous heart that says, well, it doesn't matter if I make my money back, because it's likely it's likely that wouldn't happen.
Right, of course.
Recently you've had the goalkeeper coaching course in St. Kitts. How did that go?
That went very, very, very well. It is the first time that we have focused on the area of goalkeeping. We recognize that is one of our weak areas, is an area that we need to develop more goalkeepers. So the very first time we brought the FIFA goalkeeping course, we had some 27 goalkeepers attended. And their role now is to go back into the community, go back into the school, and help to develop the art of goalkeeping, work with their youth programs of the various clubs, work with the primary school, and emphasizing to these coaches that they need to get back, to return to your primary school and begin the recruitment process of getting young goalkeepers involved.
Now, but for goalkeeping, and maybe it's changed, because I know back in the primary school days growing up, if you weren't a good footballer, that's where you were stuck. I assume that it's time then that we start looking at that differently, and hopefully that sort of mentality has changed.
Yes, it has. I mean, it's strange that that is one of the comments that I made at the opening of at the closing of the goalkeeping course. That I said, we remember small when we were kids going to primary school. I mean, the usually the person that nobody wanted to pick on the team, and they run him in the goal, and while going to goal.
Yeah.
So that mentality has to change, and then we now have to go out and actively recruit players that has as we reckon, the international, the physical attributes to go in the goal. When we play in the international scene, we are playing against goalkeepers who are 6'6", and our strikers have never seen a goalkeeper of that size, and so it's always very intimidating for them. But if we have this same level of caliber of goalkeepers in our local leagues, then our strikers will become more accustomed to playing against that type of goalkeeping.
And I just said, but it's a position that really takes a lot of skill. It's not one that we definitely have to put away that mentality that if you're not good, that's where you belong. But really, it's one of the more skilled positions.
Definitely, it's one of the more skilled positions. It is one of the it's the last line of defense and your first line of attack, and so it has to be the most skilled position.
Now, I want us to move on to something that is obviously going to be dear to my heart and dear to a lot of people's heart on this side of the Federation over in Nevis, and that is Nevis football. I guess it's probably going on 2 years now since we've had football being played in Nevis. Is the National Federation of Football aware of this?
Not. I've heard bits and pieces, but I'm not privy to what the situation really is on the ground. I understand that there was a date set for the commencement of a league, and then that seemed to have been fallen away, but I'm not privy to all the details on the ground.
Well, I'm not either, and I don't know why, but really, it's one of those things that is definitely disappointing.
Yes, I mean, we have our similar situation here in St. Kitts where the league should have started since about October last year, and due to an impasse, we haven't had any football since. But and then just in the Premier Division, but the other competitions are going on.
Right.
But of course, the Premier Division is the flagship competition because that is the league that generates most interest, generates revenue, generates sponsorship. It's the top level of the competition. So we are very concerned about that on both islands in terms of having our young people gainfully engage in a sporting activity that is positive, that helps to keep them off the street. So we're very concerned in that regard.
Well, and it's quite right that the SKNFA should really be concerned in regards to that. But is there any specific steps in that the SKNFA is making to ensure that football is being played, especially the Premier Division in St. Kitts, that gets back on schedule?
Yes, definitely. We are definitely doing what we can, what we have to do to get that back on schedule. The situation as it stands is that both parties are unable to agree on the composition of the arbitration panel, and so the SKNFA, not wanting to delay the process any further, is in the process of making an application to the court to then ask the court to appoint an arbitrator. If both parties can agree on the composition of the panel, then the next best thing to do is to ask the court to determine the arbitrator, and then we move forward from there.
Okay.
The situation in Nevis, I spoke to the president of the Nevis Football Association recently. We're going to continue our dialogue. Of course, we would like to meet and sit down with the Nevis Association, find out what is going on, what is the problem, and see what we can do to assist.
Okay. Well, barring that, because as I say, I still don't understand exactly why we have the situation in Nevis, and I'm not going to say, well, that you should know. But barring that, are you satisfied with the development of football in Nevis? And as I said, excluding what's going on now with the league, etc. But if we can look at, say, players that would have come out of Nevis in recent times, or players that you may know of in Nevis, are you and the SKNFA satisfied with the development of Nevis football, or footballers on Nevis?
Yeah, I would have to say at this point, no, I don't think that we have done enough in terms of the development of football on Nevis over the years, but we are beginning to close that gap, and that is what is important, because we're a small population. If we focus on St. Kitts alone, we barely have 30-something plus thousand people, so it makes sense to expand the pool. The wider the pool, the more footballers, the better footballers they have coming through. So it makes more sense to expand the pool, have a wider pool of footballers from the federation, and that will include the development of football on Nevis. And so that is why we have put a lot of emphasis in the development of football on Nevis at the grassroots level. That will bring more people into the pool, because we were beginning the program in the primary schools, which we have already done. Next month, from the 2nd of March to the 4th of March, we're going to bring a number of FIFA instructors over to Nevis to conduct a grassroots training program. That program train the grassroots instructors with some persons like the teachers and stuff like that. We're going to train those, and we're going to also train the kids. Grassroots football is designed to get people involved in football. Boys and girls between the ages of 6 to 12. So they're really playing football for the fun of it. It's not a competition. So they are allowed to kick the ball and run around and around the field and kick the ball and enjoy themselves. And if they want to hold the ball in the hand and do not know it, I mean, it's a matter of getting them to touch the ball at an early age, and that is what grassroots football is all about. And it is designed to bring more people into the pool.
All right. Now, let's talk a bit about officiating and football officiating in St. Kitts and Nevis. I know that there's been some progress made in recent times how is that going, and what role is the SKNFA really playing in that?
Well, we are very proud of where we are in terms of officiating in football refereeing in St. Kitts and Nevis. So where we just had received confirmation from FIFA of 3 persons selected for the 2013 list. Of course, of which Kimber Ward from Nevis, a referee, is the first referee from Nevis to be selected as a FIFA referee, and we're very proud of that. The other persons on the list are Mr. Gravy Brown and Mr. Mike Guinness. Those have been on the list for some time. So every year, the list is renewed, and they have been able to maintain their place on the list. And like I said, for the very first time, Kimber Ward is coming onto the list this year. What that means is that those 3 officials are now FIFA officials. Right. So when there are matches throughout the region, FIFA will call on those officials. If I can't just send any official to do a game, you have to be an approved FIFA official.
Now, when there's when the time comes that there's actually a St. Kitts Nevis national refereeing in a World Cup, that's going to be a very proud moment, wouldn't it?
It definitely would be. I mean, we have Gravy Brown is probably our most experienced person. He has been officiating for some time now. About 2 years back, he did the CONCACAF Under-17 Championships in Jamaica. He just recently did the officiate in the final game of the CFU Championship in Antigua. And next weekend, he's off to Mexico to do the CONCACAF Under-20 Championships. So I want to take this opportunity to encourage a lot of our young football-loving people. There are a lot of people out there, you might love the game of football, but you may not be the best of it. But so maybe there might be an area in refereeing for you, and it can be a career opportunity. And so, because the thing with refereeing, you also have to come in at a very young age. I think the benchmark for getting onto the list as early as 23. And then by 45, you're considered expired by FIFA. So it's a very short window. You have to get on very young. Mm-hmm. You have to do as much international games, and you continue to move up the ladder. And so it's very important to get in very young. We would like persons as young as 16, 18, 19, early 20s to begin to start refereeing. By the time they're 25, 26, and they make it onto the FIFA list, it gives them a good chance of advancing very, very, very far.
Yeah, but calling those very young ages, I mean, I know when I was those types of ages, I wouldn't be interested in that and want to play. So
that is why we want to change the mentality. Because what happens is that persons wait until their football career is over to then to start to referee. And by that time, you're 35, 36, 38. You really are not going to make it onto the FIFA list at that age.
Well, yeah, I can understand that, and it is logical because even as a referee, you have to be quite fit.
Fitness, right? There are 3 components that you have to be really good at. You have to be fit, you have to know the laws of the game, and you have to be young. So it's age, knowledge of the game, and fitness.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as we wrap up, and just before we wrap up, let's talk a bit about sponsorship, because for the development of any sport, especially a sport like football, sponsorship is quite important. For example, if you're traveling with a football team, that's a lot of tickets, and a lot of financial requirements. Where is the sponsorship of football in St. Kitts and Nevis? And when I say this, I'm not just talking about from the SKNFA level, and we can talk about that too, but let's talk about at the club level. Are you satisfied as an official in the SKNFA with the level of corporate support for the game of football in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Sure. Well, first of all, before I get on to sponsorship, just for the listening public in Nevis, to let them know that also next month, from the 10th to the 15th of March, 2 refereeing officials will be going over to Antigua to do what is the for 2 or 3 referee instructors course. and Mr. Macefield Nisbet from Nevis will be participating in that course as the referee fitness instructor.
Okay.
And he'll be accompanied by Mr. Fitzroy Eddy, who will be the referee's instructor. So I just wanted to share that information.
All right. Well, that's good news.
Yes. In terms of sponsorship, of course, we're never really satisfied with the level of sponsorship. But we are cognizant of the challenging financial times. We have to take into consideration, of course, you always have to come back to economies of scale. And this small size of our country, it's the same corporate partners that everybody is going to for sponsorship. And so we have to bear that in mind. But nonetheless, we believe that football is a valuable product, and we believe that the benefits that football provides in terms of providing opportunities and avenues for our young boys and girls, something positive for them to do, something that will keep them away from a life of crime, that is something that we believe that the corporate community should come on board with sponsorship of football. We still have a lot of teams at the club level that are not sponsored, and you're quite right. And so that put a burden on persons within the club who have to have their pocket into the personal money, which is already stretched.
Yes.
To purchase things like uniforms and to get the goalkeeper glove and to purchase ball and stuff like that. So sometimes you have one or two person in the club who is carrying the load, and it's unfortunate. But we would like to see more sponsorship of the teams. As a matter of fact, I would like to see every single team that is playing football at least have a sponsor to take that burden from some individuals.
What do you think need to happen for something like that to actually come to pass?
Well, a lot of it depends on us, and when I say us, I mean we, the football family. I mean we, the clubs. The clubs have to raise their profile. You have to go out into the corporate community, and you have to sell yourself. You have to prove to the corporate community. You have to prove to the corporate community why is it that the corporate community should come on board with you. And so the clubs have to sell themselves to the corporate community. They have to prove to the corporate community that coming on board adds value to the club, but also adds value to the corporate community. What are the clubs going to give in return for their sponsorship? The corporate community will want to know that. And so we have had a number of training programs. We've had 2 club administration courses over the last year that taught the clubs the very same thing: how to seek corporate sponsorship, how to approach sponsors, how to sell themselves, and that is very important. So we're not just focusing on the development of football on the field. We're focusing on the development of football off the field, in terms of capacity building, to teach the general secretary and the presidents of the club how to sell their club to the corporate communities. And we have done that on 2 occasions. We had just last year we had 2 courses on club management, because we recognize that is an area that is very, very, very weak. A lot of the clubs not aware of the value of their club, how to approach sponsors, how to sell themselves, and that kind of thing.
Okay, my last question. And I want you to consider a number of things for these teams that I want you to list in terms of success. When I say success, I'm talking about, of course, in terms of championship, even if they didn't win a championship, but just success in the Premier Division and history. Considering those 2 things, in the entire league in St. Kitts, the Premier Division, give me the top 3 teams that you would call that first come to mind when you think of the history of the team and success in the Premier Division.
I mean, however, I could call 4 teams. I mean, if I leave somebody else, somebody will cuss me and say, "Oh, they leave this team out," and they're there before.
Well, hey, that's part of the fun of sports, eh? That's part of the fun thing about sports.
Yes. And the thing is that we've had a number of clubs that have a long history, that have played in the Premier League for a number of years, and have made significant contribution to the development of football. And those teams, I speak of SL Hartford St. Paul's, Ramsville Superstars, Newtown United. Like I said, I don't want to leave anybody out. Garden Hotspurs has been
Well,
there
I
for
was
50-something years.
I was
One of, I
waiting.
think, the oldest club in the SKNFA. And there are many others. Like I said, you know, the one is to believe in somebody else who's very important, because I believe that all clubs will make a contribution. But I think there's some that have a legacy of in terms of their involvement. There's some that have been involved in the Premier League and in football in excess of 30 years, and then so that those are some of the clubs that I think come to mind.
Well, if you didn't say Garden Hotspurs, I would have had to ban you from the show after your first appearance.
You know, as a kid, I mean, the Garden Hotspurs was one of the teams that I know I grew up looking at. Garden Hotspurs.
Deco Huggins and all.
A lot of the teams have fought aside, and if you call the names, a lot of the young people would remember the Santos and the Benfica. And those teams that played the Premier Division football, and Garden Hotspurs was back there with them.
Right, right, and well, Garden Hotspurs have a special place in my heart. When I lived in St. Kitts, when I first returned back in 1998, that's where I used to play.
Yes,
you know, with Sosa and Deco and all those guys down
definitely.
there. Yep. Mr. Jacobs, it's been a very, very good pleasure to have you on the show this morning. We really appreciate it. You've shared a lot of information, and I think that our knowledge about football in St. Kitts and Nevis is all the better for it.
Yes, and I'm always available. Just give me a call, and I'm always available to come on your program and to share to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and in particular Nevis, because we really want to get Nevis more involved in the national football program.
All right, thanks very much.
All right, take care.
Have a good day. Okay. Folks, there's our conversation with Mr. Stanley Jacobs. We're going to take a break, and when we come back on, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and still staying in St. Kitts and Nevis and talking about issues